Hello, hello. Hey guys, we are talking about blood sugar balance today. And if you do not have, you think you don't have problems with blood sugar levels, please do not give this a chance and listen, because you don't have to be pre-diabetic or diabetic or have insulin resistance or having any metabolic disorder for you to actually hear this, because it is actually quite surprising how much sugar issues we all have, and especially as we enter perimenopause and menopause, things start changing very rapidly. Part of the reason is that the way we metabolize sugar in our 20s and 30s is very different than we enter 40s and 50s and beyond. And so this is the reason why you could, for example, have popsicles and a lot of ice cream and a lot of cookies and bread and all that when you were in your 20s and 30s and never put on weight. And then suddenly, we always say suddenly, as you enter perimenopause and menopause, you suddenly go like, oh, it's just like suddenly I got this belly fat and I got anxiety attacks, and the list goes on. And I'm going to talk about symptoms of blood sugar dysregulation. The reason why that happens is because our body just doesn't metabolize sugar the same way that it did when we were younger. And specifically, it's the insulin receptors are not as open and adaptable as they were when we were younger. So the actual mechanism behind it is actually pretty straightforward. What happens is that when you eat something like, let's say, a cookie, or you have a smoothie that's got like a banana in it, right? And it's got some carbohydrates, and it's got, which sugar is part of, right? It's got some protein and fiber in it. And then what happens is the body then starts producing there's a whole host of things that's happening, right? You start producing enzymes to help you break the food down. But in order to deal with sugar, the body then produces insulin in the pancreas, right? And then the pancreas, as it issues the insulin is there to come and clean up the blood sugar from the blood. So literally insulin, think of insulin as like a key that opens up a cell, and that cell opens up and it lets the sugar into the cell, and that's how it clears it out of your bloodstream, right? Regulating your blood sugar levels. As we get older, that doesn't happen as efficiently, and insulin receptors are not as sensitive to insulin as they once were. You can resensitize them. And so I'm going to talk about that. How do we do that? Because insulin also is a hormone. So it's something you need to remember, that insulin is a hormone. It's not just like this peculiar thing that just gets produced. It is a hormone. And this is the reason why blood sugar balance is part of your protocol to rebalance your hormones naturally. For those of you who have my books, I always talk about the three-legged stool analogy, that for you to have balanced hormones, your digestion, blood sugar balance, and your liver health has to be in a pretty good shape for you to feel good, right? That's really our starting point in our world, that a hormones balance and a well, and we believe in those three bodily systems working really well together, forming a foundation for really strong hormonal balance. You can add a lot of things later on, like this herb and that food and this supplement and that supplement, but the foundation isn't strong. It's like, you're living in a house when the foundation isn't very strong, it's gonna fall apart, right? So this is the reason why this week we are this actually the past week and this week we are talking so much about belly fat. And in full transparency and honesty, I keep saying this in all our email and communications, that I don't want to mislead you to believe that there is one quick fix for fixing belly fat. There isn't one. If there was one, you probably would know it by now. And so anyone who guarantees you and wants to entice you, with buying this one supplement or this one pill or doing this one type of exercise for belly fat, I'll tell you right now, it doesn't work. And you should exercise some caution. So belly fat happens because of what I was just discussing and explaining at the beginning, is that as we age, and notice belly fat typically starts happening, for those of you here who are listening live, like when did your belly fat start being a problem, right? And I bet you it wasn't in your 20s and 30s. And so I'm just curious, when did you start experiencing? But most of the time women reported it was in their 40s and 50s, when you're like, diet hasn't changed, exercise hasn't changed, you actually many of you are actually taking better care of yourselves than ever before, but yet you still have that belly fat, and it just is very hard to get rid of it. So this is where we want to help you with today's call. There's certain things that we can do. I don't want to just talk about belly fat, but a big part of belly fat is the fact that you're metabolizing sugar. Your body's struggling metabolizing sugar. So that's what I want to help you with today. But I also want to, in today's call, I want to help you be a little bit of a detective to understand where are we loading on sugar a lot? Where is it all coming from? What are some of the diet changes you can make? What are some of the supplements you can take to help upregulate your cells to uptake insulin better and clear that sugar out much quicker? So the reason why you get belly fat is basically the biggest reason behind it is when your body is not clearing that sugar very effectively, and then the body finds places in the body where it's the safest way to deposit that sugar, and it converts into fat, unfortunately. And it's going to be in two places. One is your liver. So for those of you who are struggling with fatty liver, and even though you're non-alcoholic, so it's actually called a non-alcoholic fatty liver. It's most likely due to a high consumption of carbohydrates where sugar is part of it, and you're just not clearing it very effectively. And number two is basically your belly, visceral fat, right? And visceral fat is not, cosmetically it doesn't look appealing. So I know many of you are struggling with that. In fact, every year we do a survey asking you guys, like, what would you like to hear from us about? What kind of content can we create for you for in the coming year? And we always try to connect it to your pain points. And the biggest pain point every year you guys have been telling us is that belly fat is what bothers you the most. So, so this is really where Teresa is saying, I hate my sugar addiction. Yeah. So Teresa, let's talk about that, because it is really, for some of you, it can be really addictive. And so really, who is this call today for? So let's talk about that. Like who should listen to this call? And if you have any friends who are struggling with belly fat, blood sugar imbalances, anxiety, tag them in this post, and hopefully this is going to help them. So who is this call for? Yes, for those of you who are having a serious sugar addiction, that's definitely a big part of it. And I can explain that biologically what happens in the body that actually you crave that sugar. Number two is for those of you who have been actually diagnosed with high blood sugar levels and like you're pre-diabetic. And I'm going to talk about the functional and allopathic or traditional medicine or conventional medicine ranges, because they are quite different. If you want to have healthy blood sugar levels, actually the standard ranges are not very helpful. They're actually not very healthy. So let's talk about that. And then let's also talk about who else am I talking to? Also, for those of you who are, who you have no idea right now that you have sugar problem, but you do have belly fat, and that's what's bothering you a lot. So you'll be surprised how many of you are actually consuming a lot more sugar than you think. And so we're going to come to this as well. And I would love to really empower you to understand where sugar is coming from. And especially this is a real big problem in the United States because, it's because it really is. So we'll talk about all of that. So let's maybe take it from the top down. And that is, why do some people have sugar? For those of you who have sugar addictions, why do we have a sugar addiction in the first place? So it can be multifactorial. It can be different reasons. One of the reasons why that happens is, let's understand first what sugar does in the body. So the first thing that happens when you consume carbohydrates or sugar is that it works on the same receptors in your brain as heroin does. So it is a pain number in a way. So this is the reason why, like, comfort foods will be like mac and cheese, right? Or ice cream. And, you don't have comfort food being like hummus with carrots. You know what I mean? That's not your comfort food. The comfort food is always going to be something that's loaded with sugar, loaded with carbohydrates, right? Why? And fat, of course. And the reason is because, believe it or not, it works on the same receptors in the brain as that. So it does create also a dopamine release, right? You eat ice cream, makes you feel good, at least temporarily. Now, for some people, that kind of sugar addiction was created right from childhood. For those of you who maybe have experienced sugar addiction from a very young age where sugar was your way of soothing yourself. So for example, let's just say you grew up in a family with a lot of abuse, neglect, you didn't get a kind of love and attention from your parents as a child should. A lot of people have memories of hiding somewhere in the house, right, and having a chocolate bar and cookies and sweets, because that was the only comfort that they could find. So that's when sugar addiction becomes more psychological than physiological. So there's two really types of, when you're addicted to sugar and you really find it very hard to control it, those are the two main ones. And you need to figure out which one is it. And for some people, it could always be, it could be both. For some people, it could also be as a child of getting a sweet because it was a form of reward, right? So that, again, it creates a dopamine release. And so we kind of get addicted to this whole idea of, I do something nice and I get a reward. It's like a dog, right? That gets a treat every time the dog does something correctly. And as a dog mama, I personally don't do treats for rewards, just because of that reason. So the so you need to figure out, is your psychological, right? Does it come from the dopamine hit that you're getting? Makes you feel good about yourself. It's a way of soothing yourself. It's a way of dealing with stress and despair and emotional trauma from the past or currently. Or is it physiological? And by the way, it can be both too. Okay, I hope it's not for you, because then you got a double homework to do. But if it's the first one, psychological, then this is something that's more of a therapy material that you work with a therapist on. If we talk about the second term of addiction, that is physiological, there could be a little bit more to do with a couple of things. A big reason why your body's craving sugar, it could be because you have something called candida. Candida is a yeast overgrowth in the gut. And candida, as a yeast, for those of you who maybe have made yeast cakes or breads, or maybe you're brewing your own beer, right? That yeast grows on sugar. If you want to feed the yeast, you give it sugar, right? For those of you who've made like maybe yeast pizza crust, you're going to add a bit of sugar in order for the yeast to bloom, right? So this is the second thing. Then you go like, okay, could it be that I'm having problems with candida? And look up what are the other symptoms. It's a longer discussion. It takes time to clear it, but it's completely possible. You're going to go on a pretty restricted diet for a period of time, do some antifungals and to clear it out, but it's completely possible to do. So don't be, one thing I just really want to impart here is, don't be angry with your own body. Don't feel like your body is betraying you or you are weak. And that creates a sense of despair and anger towards oneself. Don't do that, because if it's psychological, that is because of something that you're getting out of this, and you need to break that pattern, and you need therapy, and it's not your fault. It's probably something that happened in the past. If it's physiological, again, it's not your fault, that you have yeast infection, and it's something you can work with a skilled practitioner on reversing that, and it's highly reversible. So, the other thing is that it's also, I feel like there's also somewhere you don't have to have yeast infection to crave sugar. I think sometimes people, are so used to the amount of sugar, everything is so sweet, that it just becomes part of our palate. And again, you can reverse that. And I'm going to talk about solutions in just a second. And when I say that, it's, as you probably know, and you can hear, I'm not American. I've lived in the United States for almost 15 years now. But when I first moved to the US, one of the biggest shockers for me, I will say, I always felt like I landed on a different planet. And there was a lot of different things. I'm European, of Polish descent, grew up in Asia, right? And so like I have this mixed background. But both places, whether it's my European background or Asian upbringing, I didn't grow up with a lot of sugar. In fact, there is not much sugar in our cultures, where the cultures I grew up with. And so coming to the United States, I was like, even the beer tastes sweet. Oh my God. And there is sugar in kielbasa, Polish kielbasa, which I find very offensive, by the way, as a Pole. How can you put sugar in kielbasa? And then, the juices tasted so sweet. And I thought that the cocktails were so sweet. I think the cakes and the desserts were so sweet, right? And I think a big part of that is that the American palate is used to a very high amount of sugar. Historically, you can go back to historically why that happened. When tobacco companies shut down, a lot of the farmers, the government needed to do something with all the farmers who got shut down with not growing tobacco anymore. So they started growing cane sugar, right? And then beets, that's where sugar is coming from. And so then they had to basically get rid of that sugar. And so sugar started finding its way to everything. And in the US, like if you pick up a bottle of ketchup, there's sugar there. You pick up green juice, there's sugar in there. And so, one of the things that, so I think that there is a adjustment of your palate that you can do that's going to help you overall feel better. And you guys, I am not talking here about just about the belly fat. I really think there is a lot more to address when it comes to sugar addiction. One of the big things about sugar is the fact that it is a highly, highly inflammatory substance. It also adds a ton of calories into your diet without any nutrition. Okay, there is no nutrients in sugar. Let me just tell you that. Sure, I mean, having a little bit of, sweetener like honey, right? Or, sweet molasses or, or coconut sugar and so on. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's not be militant here about like having zero sugar whatsoever. It's all about moderation, right? And in my world, the moderation in a functional nutrition perspective is looking at having 20 grams of sugar a day, which is equivalent to about 5 teaspoons. And so you basically take the 20 grams, you divide it by 4. So 1 teaspoon is 4 grams of sugar, right? 1 teaspoon is 4 grams. So and that's what you really wanna be looking at. And it's coming from everything, including fruits and desserts and things like that, right? So I'm going to talk about solutions in just a second, a little bit more. Jen, let's maybe shift gears and talk a little bit about like, how do you know you have blood sugar problem, right? Because I don't want you to think like, oh, that's not me. My doctor says my blood sugar levels are all great. So let's talk a little bit about that. And let me give you, I'm just reading this from my book. For those of you who know the book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, there's one whole chapter on blood sugar balance. So what are the symptoms of hypoglycemia? So you can either be hypoglycemic or hyperglycemic, right? So hypoglycemia, many of you have, I'm sure, experienced this before, where you suddenly start feeling shaky, unfocused, and then you're like, oh, what's going on here? And then hyperglycemia is when you have high blood sugar levels. So let's talk about symptoms. Hypoglycemia, low blood sugar levels, having to eat every few hours to avoid crashing, right? And the reason why crashing is because you had too much sugar in the first place. This is the reason why, you guys, I'm such a big fan and proponent, and I keep rambling about it over and over and over again. Start your day with a savory breakfast. Not oatmeal, not smoothie with a whole bunch of bananas, right? You start off your day with a savory breakfast to set your blood sugar levels up for a really good start. Because the more sugar you do first thing in the morning, and by the way, that includes coffee raises your blood sugar levels, even with all that fat in there and without a sweetener. That's what coffee does. It raises your blood sugar levels, and the more it goes up, the faster it's going to come crashing down. 11 o'clock, that's when you go like, I just had breakfast 2 hours ago. Why am I hungry again? Why am I crashing? So when they say crashing, it basically means you're feeling shaky, nervous, and anxious. By the way, anxiety, my good friend, my good friend, and I'm forgetting, why am I blanking out her name? Trudy Scott, who does anxiety work. She says one of the first things that she does, she looks at people's blood sugar levels, because that's one of the big reasons why women get anxiety. So when you're crashing, what happens? Shaky, nervousness, anxiety. You get moody and unfocused. You might start sweating, experiencing chills and clumsiness. And by the way, it includes hot flashes. So for those of you who have hot flashes, regulating your blood sugar levels might help you hot flashes. There could be other things that could help as well, like estrogen, progesterone, but start off with blood sugar. Sweating, experiencing chills and clumsiness, irritability and impatience, feeling confused and even delirious, rapid and fast heartbeat, lightheadedness and dizziness, right? And then you find yourself going like needing sugar to bring sugar levels up 2 hours after eating. And this is, ladies, this is what our good friends from the American Diabetic Association would recommend for you to be eating every 2 days. I once went to a doctor and I was sitting in the waiting room and there was a magazine from the American Diabetes Association. So I thought, okay, let's take a look. And they had these lovely recipes. And it was all sugar and carbs. It was pastas and breads and more pastas and more breads. There wasn't even like whole grains. And so no wonder their recommendations, the ADA's recommendation is to eat every 2 hours, because you're basically crushing every 2 hours. It's kind of crazy, but that's just how it is. It's a bigger conversation, probably to do a lot of with the big agriculture, pushing grains on us, and anyway, so that's hypoglycemia, right? But hypoglycemia typically happens when you consume too much sugar, and then when you do that often, it was over and over and over again, you come to the other side, which is hyperglycemia, high blood sugar levels. And the symptoms of this are blurry vision, difficulty concentrating, frequent urination, constant thirst, constant hunger, even after a large meal. And that's got something to do with leptin dysregulation, fatigue after eating, stubborn belly fat, so blood glucose that's greater than 90, even though your labs say that 99 is acceptable. Okay, so that's remember how I talked about at the beginning of this call, functional labs, functional results of really healthy person, or a relatively healthy person, is different from a person who is let's just say just functional. Okay, and so your doctor might say, well, you are not diabetic yet, you just at 97 because you're just below 99. If you want to be really healthy, you want to see your blood sugar levels to be, your blood glucose, your fasting, this is the fasting glucose level to be below 90. And then the other great marker is HA1C. So your hemoglobin A1C, it should be below 5.4 and not 5.6. HA1C is an interesting one because regardless of what you ate the night before, it shows you the average blood sugar levels for the past 3 months. So it's a pretty cool marker, and you should be doing that. It's very inexpensive to do. Most labs, most insurance companies would cover it. Insulin is then greater than 15. And then the labs, again, might show you 24.9, so almost 25. So 25 and 15, that's quite a big difference there, right? So those are some of the things that, and for those of you who don't know, this is my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, where blood sugar balance is a big part of the solution here. So I hope this was helpful for you to know when is your labs, and looking at functional ranges. The other thing to look at is, of course, the symptoms that I just talked about. So let's move on to the next one, which is, what do we then do to help ourselves when it comes to reversing blood sugar, right, levels? And I think the first thing that you need to realize is that, yeah, sure, you can do botanicals, you can do prescription drugs for regulation of blood sugar levels, right? But I think this is just like really, if your diet doesn't change, you're just constantly throwing the fuel into the fire pit, right? Wouldn't you want to kind of address it and nip it in the bud? Here's the good news I want to share with you. The amazing news is that once you get off sugar, even just for like a couple of weeks, and when you go back to the old way of eating, you're like, oh my God, that is sweet. That is disgusting. How could I have that margarita before? I can't even taste that lime in this because all I could taste is the sugar. We get our receptors get recalibrated. And that's one of the beautiful things about getting off sugar for a while, right? So one of the things I want to challenge you to, if you guys are up for it, next year we're actually going to do a proper challenge. Just this year we haven't had a time to organize this. When we started talking about it, was too late, and now we all working towards the holiday offers and stuff. So next year we're going to do that. But I can just share this with you so you can do it yourself before the holidays. And it is kind of like do a sugar challenge on your own. And the challenge that I want to challenge you to is to get off sugar for a couple of weeks. So like 0 added sugar, not to your coffee, not to your tea. When you go and get a latte, you ask them to make sure there's no sugar in the latte, and you'd be surprised, you're still gonna get sugar because that's just how it is. But there are places that don't, they truly honor that. And then no fruit, no grains, just for a couple of weeks. So like paleo, you just go paleo and see what it does to your body. For some of you, especially for those of you who have a serious sugar addiction, you might actually go through a detox process when you are actually not sleeping, and it's not going to be pretty. So you might want to do that gradually, or maybe after the holidays. But for those of you who have an inkling that maybe sugar is a little bit of a problem, and you want to just like do a little bit of a challenge before the holidays and lose a couple of pounds, let me tell you, I am doing right now that kind of thing. It's not a challenge I chose to do. Well, I chose to do it, but it's because I'm dealing with a mold situation and I'm doing a mold detox. And in my case, and in many people's cases, mold, candida, the yeast infection I talked about, oxalates is like this interchangeable game that's going on. And I have all of this thing going on. So I'm following a protocol that requires me to be 0 sugar, no grains, not even sweet potato, not even, you don't have to do as deep as that. But I just want to so I'm just sharing with you that I've been doing this now for, I think I'm on my 6 week right now. And I've lost a significant amount of weight. And I didn't have that much weight to lose to start off with. But my belly is really nice and flat. I feel like my muscles are a lot more toned, and I feel just really, really great. So that's something, try it out, and you'll be surprised how much of a result you might be getting in seeing your tummy going down if belly fat is your concern. So let's talk a little bit about where's some of the sugar traps. I want to talk a little bit about that because many of you are here because you're really living a really healthy lifestyle, right? Do you guys like my fox? That's a fox outside my window. I made a chai this morning and it's just so good. So let's talk about that. Like, what are some of the big sugar traps? And as much as I really dislike micromanagement, like I would never ever ask you to count calories or count your macronutrients, and because it is highly obsessive, it creates a very unhealthy addiction to micromanaging your diet, right? But I want to just encourage you, especially if you have kids or grandkids, you can actually do it together as a little like a detective work, especially for kids. It can be really fun to understand how much sugar there is in the different foods you're eating on a regular basis. And you will be in for a huge, huge surprise. So, and what I mean by that is take a look at, for example, if you're going to a coffee shop, right, and you're ordering your favorite frappuccino, take a look, just pull out your phone, take a look at their website, will say how much sugar it contains. On the board, they might say how many calories it has. That's not very helpful because that could be coming from fat or it can be coming from other things. But you want to know specifically sugar because that's what we are. It's the biggest inflammatory thing that really messes with your hormones, with your inflammation, makes all diseases a lot harder to fight. So take a look, just pull out your phone. And so let me just share with you, one of the big brands out there, Frappuccino, 86 grams of sugar. Take 86 divided by 4. What is that? It gives you like 20 something teaspoons of sugar. It's pretty sick. So, another one is green juices. A lot of green juices, if it's like freshly made and it's written on the board, it's got like cucumber and kale and parsley and, maybe an apple in it, right? That's probably acceptable. That's not going to be super loaded with sugar. But if you're buying those prepackaged green juices, you will be shocked. Like one of the brands, I don't know where they still sell it. It's called Odwalla. I'm just naming a few brands, but it's like I'm not singling out any brands here. They all are culprits of that. You look at the green juice and you might be finding like 15 grams, 20 grams, 25 grams of sugar. And you're like, wait a second, it says green superfood drink, right? And so, when you do like a little bit of all of that every day, and then you have like a little soda somewhere in between, right? And even healthy sodas, it's kind of shocking how much sugar is in those. So what I'm, you know what I'm saying, right? So and then do like a little bit of a mental check-in, or actually write it down on a piece of paper, like for the next 3 days, like what are you eating, including breakfast? That's the reason why I really dislike oatmeal. For those of you who saw our email that went out this morning, right? All the healthy breakfast. When we interview people for jobs, we always ask them at the bottom of the questions, like, what's your favorite healthy breakfast? And everybody puts their oatmeal. To me, oatmeal is a great food before going to bed because it just puts you in a coma. I am not joking. In fact, when I do calls about sleep and how to improve sleep, this is something that a lot of my friends who are also practitioners, and a few friends that are kind of like initiated on this crazy journey called health, would tell you that we all do oatmeal at night with a banana because it just knocks you out. You're just in a coma and you sleep actually pretty well because it's got some, nice fiber in it and stuff. But it's not breakfast food where you want to be energized and be sharp in your mind and be, because that brings you down and you're like, well, now I need my coffee to pick me up, right? And so you're on this sugar roller coaster. This is the reason why, if you look at our feed, our reels, in every channel, I keep rambling on about do savory breakfast, don't avoid sugar at breakfast. And it's going to make a huge difference in how you feel and how your day presents itself to you. So that's what I want to suggest to you. For the next 3 days, pull out a piece of paper, write everything you're consuming, look it up online. I'll start looking at the labels. Don't read the front of the label, folks. Look at the back of the label, the ingredients, and take a look how much sugar is there. And a lot of times they'll tell you no added sugar. Yeah, sure. But if they put a lot of stuff that has like dates and stuff, nothing wrong with Larabar, excuse me. I love Larabar. I really, really do. It's like super clean, really nice product, right? But look at the first ingredient on the list is dates or figs or whatever they're using there, right? So that sets you up for like 20 something or 15 or 20 grams, depending on which bar, 15 to 20 grams of sugar a day. And that should be your daily intake. In fact, if you're doing the sugar challenge that I'm talking about, you don't even do that. So you might be asking like, hey, Magdalena, so what's your snack during the 6 weeks, right? So my snack would be maybe once a week, I'll bake an apple or pears and with some olive oil and arrowroot, and I bake it, and it's like a nice apple pie filling kind of a thing. It's actually really satisfying with some nuts on top. It's really good. But otherwise, I just focus on savory snacks. So like, for example, I'll get cauliflower crackers at Whole Foods that are non-grain. There's a lot of like flax crackers, flaxers, I think they call them, right? And I'm just dipping that in some nut butter, or hummus or baba ganoush, right? Those are just really nice snacks, you guys. Like it doesn't, and besides, if your meals are satisfying, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then you actually don't even need to snack. Snacking is very much invented in America because everybody's on a low-fat diet or some kind of a diet, and they feel so deprived that after a meal, they feel hungry 2 hours later. Now you need a snack. So I want to challenge you to that and see and come back and report to us and see what a difference that would have made for you. So apart from the diet changes that I talked about, so let's just do a recap. We're talking about changing your breakfast to a savory breakfast. If I have 2 books, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. That is not just a book, but it's also a cookbook, you guys. So there's tons of recipes at the back, a lot of different savory breakfast options. Look at our reels. We have a lot of savory breakfast options there as well. If you lack imagination or you have no time for doing this, then it's basically simply you take your dinner leftovers and you have that for breakfast. And get used to it. It's kind of like, I remember somebody once, I did a call like this actually it was, I can't remember whether it's in this book or there's like an online version of this for one of our programs. There was a breakfast called the Fisherman's Wise Breakfast. And so it was basically a salmon with a lot of greens and some sweet potatoes and whatever. And this person said, this is the most disgusting breakfast she's ever seen, to be eating fish for breakfast. And I thought it was really interesting because we find, Japan so fascinating. And guess what? The Japanese people eat actually fish for breakfast. So, it's all a matter of adjustment. And I'm not saying it's not going to be an adjustment. It is going to be an adjustment, but it's a doable one. And I guarantee you, it's going to help your weight. It's going to help your cravings. It's going to help you sleep. It's going to help you how groggy you feel. It might even help your anxiety. It might help losing a few pounds because you're not going to be craving sugar throughout the day. So there's quite a lot of benefits of starting your day with savory breakfast. Number 2 was counting how much sugar is found in your favorite foods for a few days, creating a little food journal, roping in your kids or grandkids and getting on board with that and taking a look and counting how much sugar you're consuming on a daily basis. So those are just some really simple things that you can do like right off the bat, right? And if you're not willing to do that, then I'll say, if you really must do a smoothie, do it as a midday snack, do fruit, do desserts, do whatever as a midday a treat and not as a first thing in the morning. Okay. So Jen, let's switch gears to Jen is my colleague who's helping here today. Let's switch gears to maybe talk about the 5 compounds to help sugar addiction, botanical supplements, and minerals. So I want to show you, actually, I'm just making this right now. I'm on I think it's day 3. So does anyone wants to guess what kind of a sprout that is? It's made from the seed, one of the seeds that in India is used to help you regulate blood sugar levels. So I'm sprouting that right now, and that's going to go in my smoothie. It's probably going to need one more day. And in case you're not familiar with this, so I'm going to wait for you guys to guess. But it's, I'll just tell you the answer is fenugreek. 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 It's together with cinnamon, gymnema, ginseng. It's one of those compounds, botanicals, that really helps you regulate your blood sugar levels. In India, there's quite a number of studies that are done on cinnamon, fenugreek in the form of the seeds, but you can sprout them as well. And so I just used store-bought seeds, and then I'm just and I'm just sprouting them. If you don't know how to sprout, go on our website, hormonesbalance.com. We have a whole sprouting article on how to do that. It's super simple and it's very inexpensive. By the way, I'm also sprouting, probably recognize these guys, is broccoli seeds. So they are not known for balancing blood sugar levels. I'm just sprouting them because it's just as my maintenance for estrogen dominance. I'm going to put them in my smoothie. And I made a reel the other day about savory smoothies. So using a lot of phytonutrients, sprouts, and lemon, a bit of salt, protein powder if you need to, or collagen. And it's a really nice midday snack. So you can use, it's very effective when you modify the diet based on what I said just now. And then you add a couple of maybe supplement or 2 to help you regulate, to upregulate your insulin receptors with things like fenugreek or cinnamon, right? Or gymnema. And the mineral that I mentioned here is called, is chromium. Chromium picolinate was one of our favorites. There's a lot of studies that show, it's actually, even in mainstream medicine, chromium is used to regulate blood sugar levels. But it's also it's a double function of balancing blood sugar levels. But the question is, where does the sugar go, right? So that's like, it doesn't just like poof, vanish. So where it goes is the mechanism behind it is when they say that is basically it upregulates your insulin receptors to be more sensitive to receive insulin, open up that lock that I talked about, right? And then letting the sugar into the cell instead of depositing that into your visceral fat or into your liver, giving you a non-alcoholic fatty liver. So little things like that, can be super helpful. There are supplements in the market. If you want to support us, we have a really nice product called Glucomaximus that contains all of those things that I talked about. They can be very helpful in again, even though I sell supplements, I will also be the first person to tell you the supplement on its own is not going to be as effective as, without a diet change, right? So be fair to your body, be fair to yourself, be fair to the money you're spending on supplements, and do yourself a favor and do a change in your diet, modify your diet first, addressing all these carbohydrates, the overconsumption of sugar, and that's when a supplement can be quite magical, okay? You can also do things like start sprouting. So, these fenugreek sprouts are actually very blood sugar balancing as well. They're slightly bitter, but when you combine it, what I find is like, I'm actually going to make a reel just later today. I find that when I combine it with like our like vitamin C complete, which is, food derived, right? I put like 4 capsules or 6 capsules of our vitamin C complete. And then I'll put in the fenugreek sprouts, and then some lemon and salt and a bit of collagen, and maybe some avocado, right? It tastes actually really, really good. I got so many comments from the first one I released saying like, does it even taste good? It's like, yeah, I'm actually a cookbook writer. So yeah, I would not put recipes out there that don't taste good, so. So those are the things. So even fenugreek sprouts can help you balance your blood sugar levels. And for me, that's quite important because my whole family has diabetes. And I certainly do feel that on myself if I, for example, let me give you an example, like doing coffee on an empty stomach, even if it's with a lot of fat in it, with no sugar whatsoever, half an hour later, I feel like I'm completely crushing. So maybe that works for some segment of population, such as men. I feel like a lot of women are a lot more sensitive to blood sugar dysregulation and are sensitive to caffeine. If you need to drink coffee, have it after a meal, always. Jen, should we do some questions? I see some questions that are coming in. Do you want to pop a few of those? Kelly's asking, what should I eat for breakfast or feed my kids for breakfast? So, Kelly, I don't think has to be a difference between what you're eating, what your kids are eating, and especially, transitioning kids over to what my friends are doing. For instance, let's say if you currently are doing a lot of sugar for breakfast, right? It's like still having a piece of fruit, maybe a small muffin on the side, right? But also with a piece of chicken and some steamed vegetables and a dressing on top, right? Or whatever dinner left over. So you kind of start transitioning that. You do that through transitioning over rather than be doing an abrupt change. There is absolutely no harm in children having savory breakfast. In fact, you guys, if you think about it, around the world, all nations actually, in other than the United States and some places in Europe, actually eat savory breakfast. For those of you who've traveled the world, like if you go to Peru, it's all for market, in early in the morning to morning markets, it's all savory breakfast, savory food. Mexico is the same thing. In Japan, it's all like a piece of fish, a bit of rice, and miso soup. If you go to Morocco, it's eggs over beans, and then they have this bean soup that's really delicious. That's their classical, morning thing. Let's see. So, I mean, who here has gone to like Turkey? Like I remember being in Turkey and it's all like salami and cheese and maybe a piece of bread, right? But it's all going to be savory. So the world knows, and we historically have always been eating this way. And then somehow we kind of, I think you can put the credit or the blame or whatever, or the Kellogg's brothers, because really that's how it all started with the Kellogg's, healthy breakfast, right? And it wasn't so healthy after all. So yeah, Kelly, I hope this is helpful. Okay. So Dawn is saying, aren't kippers and kanjuri traditional breakfast? I don't know what that is. Jen, do you know what that is? No. Okay. You might want to explain that. Maybe this is like, it feels like it's an Aussie, maybe an Australian thing. Thoughts on leptin resistance? Boots and Roses is asking. So yeah, leptin resistance actually comes from blood sugar dysregulation as well. I do talk about it in my, actually my first book, in Cooking for Hormone Balance. Leptin resistance is an interesting one because not only are you having blood sugar dysregulation, but it also feels like you're never satisfied with a meal, right? That this is when you start feeling hungry right after eating. How do you address that? Is exactly, it's a whole mechanism of how the body is signaling. And there's a dysregulation that starts happening when the body, even though you've just eaten, the body doesn't put the signal in saying I'm actually full. That loop is broken. And to repair that loop, you're basically doing a blood sugar balancing protocol for that as well. Hey, you guys, if you're on Instagram and I've missed your question, then just post it again, because I just see so many there's so many people out there. What about functional post-meal numbers? Do those matter as much as fasting? They do, and it depends on the situation, and it's more complex. And I'm not sure if we want to go into this today. But apart from fasting glucose, you could also be looking at a HA1AC, which is gives you the past 3 months. The past 3 months of average blood sugar levels. Your thoughts on fasting and skipping breakfast? That's a great question. So the short answer to this is that for some women it works great, and for other women it really doesn't. And generally the consensus in functional nutrition is that for women generally who have a lot of problems with cortisol, stress, hey, come here. Can you just come here? I just want to show you, because this is my trouble girl. This is my girl who, because I've just changed the food and she loves her food. So she comes to her bowl and she makes a lot of noise with that bowl, leaking an empty bowl, which is making noise and is distracting me. And because she wants more food. Yes, we just changed your food. Yes, I know. All right, you are my darling. You are my darling. So yeah, so for some women it works and for others it doesn't. And it's a lot more nuanced conversation, because for some women you may find, and I do intermittent fasting, but it's only based on what I have learned from people who really understand this concept of doing it. Timing can be really essential. So for example, the most doable I find is that doing it like from having really early dinner, like 5 p.m., and then not eating until about 10 a.m., maximum 11. Some people have late dinner, like 8 p.m., and then they can't eat until 1 or 2 p.m., which is too late. And so you've got to listen to your body. Yes, there's a lot of amazing research about how fasting reverses aging and helps with blood sugar regulation, actually, right? It helps with growth hormone, makes you feel younger, right? Growth hormone is what helps us kind of, reverse aging, if there's such a thing. It makes your insulin receptors a lot more sensitive. Yes, that is all correct. But if you are feeling by 1 o'clock like you're shaking, right, and you're like, oh, I've got to do this for like another 2 hours because that's when I need to get my 14 or 16 hours of fast, then that's not the way to do this, So, so there's so this is what I have found personally, is to do early dinner at 5 p.m. and then eat again at 10 a.m. or so. What amount of sugar is okay? Should it be 0? No. So if you, I don't know, Debbie, whether Deb, I said 20 grams of sugar a day. So not 20 teaspoons, but 20 grams is about 5 teaspoons. And then if you want to do that no sugar challenge, then you bring it down to almost 0. Deb is saying, I need to lose weight. I also have some anxiety. So this is totally hitting home. Yeah. I can tell you this right now. By giving up sugar, you are not depriving yourself of anything. Okay. I just want to make that really clear. Like, you are not. The worst thing that can happen is that you might have a pretty severe detox for a couple of days, maybe 3, even 4 days. That's the worst that can happen. The other side of the equation is that what could happen is that you lose weight, you sleep better, your autoimmunity improves, your hormones improve, your hot flashes go away, your belly fat melts away, your anxiety gets reduced, you are a lot more sharper in your brain. I mean, it's kind of worth it. To Kiko is saying, I love ground bison season and put on a bat of baby arugula in the morning. Really makes my day go really well. Thank you. It's funny you talk about that, because that's in my first cookbook, Cooking for Hormone Balance. And if you're new to this, it's on Amazon. It's called The Farmer's Wife's Breakfast. And it's kind of similar to that, except that has like a little bit of other things there, like, avocado and a little bit of fermented foods. Trico is saying fenugreek seed, they also boil the seeds in India for supplement for lactating mothers. Yes, they do. But you're not going to lactate, just by the way. So just want to make this clear. Nobody's going to start lactating. What about, if you're not, unless you're obviously postpartum. What about making almond meal muffins with no sugar? Yeah, that's a great idea. In fact, yeah, there are some savory muffin ideas that you can find on the internet. Absolutely. Do you have suggestions for PCOS? So, Claudia, my first book, Cooking for Hormone Balance, that you can find on Amazon, actually has a whole protocol for PCOS, which I think you intuitively know I'm going with this. Blood sugar balance is one of the big things with PCOS. I forgot to mention, you guys, blood sugar, when you reduce your blood sugar levels, if you are having high testosterone issues, that's a metabolic disorder. High blood sugar levels cause high testosterone levels, and that is one of the manifestations of PCOS. So yes, so reducing sugar is one of the foundations for a protocol for PCOS. Boots and Rose is asking, would your book be helpful for a 20-year-old? Yes, it would be. How much protein should you have daily? It depends on your body weight, but shooting for 30 grams is a really great starting point. What about functional post and number? I don't know. I don't understand the question. Would your book be beneficial for 22-year-old with PCOS? Yes, absolutely. And I would suggest the other book, Cooking for Hormone Balance, although I do address PCOS in this book as well. A lot of women who have PCOS have high testosterone, and then testosterone converts to estrogen, so they end up being estrogen dominated as well. So that's the reason why we've included PCOS in this book as well. Okay, just 2 more questions. I need to wrap up, you guys, because I got another meeting. Evertrue is saying, what are your thoughts on stevia and xylitol type of sweeteners? Good question. So stevia, monk fruit, I like them. They are actually not sweeteners. They are sweeteners. You're right. They are not sugar. One caution is on stevia. A lot of times is highly processed. You want to get it in the natural form as close as possible. Monk fruit as well. A lot of times monk fruit is mixed with erythritol, and which is a sugar alcohol. I personally don't recommend it on a long-term basis. If you are just like doing a stint for 2 weeks and it's hard for you to get off sugar and off the sugar sweet palate, then a sugar alcohol might be a solution. But in the long term, they are not very well researched. And a lot of people who have digestive issues report that it makes their digestive issues even worse, which also makes me believe and think that a long-term usage of sugar alcohols, such as everything that ends with that all, so mannitol, xylitol, erythritol, right? It could be not the best for your digestion. Toxic Free Chick is saying, you recommend trying keto for a month with people with insulin resistance. I have high fasting sugar 103 and 105, and I eat at 5 p.m. That might be a really good idea if you guys want to. It's keto is not an easy protocol to follow, but it's doable. And the keto I really love and recommend for you if you want to go the keto route is to look up Dr. Anna Kebeka, Green Keto, and her recipes and protocols are really sound and healthy and safe. So we don't get caught up with this whole keto about sitting there and eating ham and bacon, for 3 times a day kind of a thing, because that's highly inflammatory. Okay, Jen, let's do one more question on this side here, and then we wrap up. Does glutamine stop sugar cravings for real? Yes, it does. But I feel like it's just one. one of the tools in your toolbox, same as like Glucomaximus, what I talked about, our supplement that contains all these things. That itself, without modifying your diet, it's a little, it's like, I don't know, it's just like you are not stopping adding the fuel to the fire, right? So, but I feel like taking glutamine while you're committing to getting off sugar and going in a low sugar diet or no sugar diet for a couple of weeks, that might be a really great idea. I have time for one more question, Jen, if there is one. Thank you for all the questions, you guys. Is diet soda okay to drink? I'm glad you asked. And the answer is a categorical no. No. Kelly, if you just Google artificial sweeteners, health risks, you will be in for a big surprise. And there's actually some of the research now is showing that it creates gut dysbiosis. It actually creates even craving for more sugar. It's highly inflammatory and it creates a lot of digestive issues. It's just poison. It's really poison. So absolutely not. Okay. Hey, you guys, this is obviously a hot topic. We're getting a lot of questions coming in. I want to thank you for being such great troopers, being here today with us and participating and asking questions, because that's telling me like you're really vested and interested in this topic. I want to just, I think that one of the great things about all of this is the fact that you can change that. If it's not, like I talked about at the beginning of the call, in case you missed it, sugar cravings can be physiological or psychological. If it's psychological, seek a therapist, work on it, see what is the sugar addiction coming from, stuff from the past. If it's physiological, it can be changed. I promise you that. And so that's, I think, a really great hope for all of us here. It's not like it's gonna, have this control over you that you can't get out of this. So you guys are amazing. I'm sure you're gonna get great strides in this. I'm gonna be here a couple of times more this year before venturing out. By the way, I'm going to Mexico for 6 months, and I'm still going to be obviously working and doing some videos from there, but I am going to take a short break towards the end of the year. So at the same time, I would love to hear from you. How has all the sugar changes changed your life, your weight, your mind, your sleep, your belly fat, whatever changes you've been experiencing. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.